By the end of this video, you will understand why I created HypnoVision Studios. But most importantly, if you're new, thank you for stopping by. I do hope that you stick around and you enjoy what you find here today. And I also have a very special message from hypnowaves.com.
It's all about the hypno vibes. Don't hate, meditate.
Okay, guys, I just want to mention to all of you out there that I recently went through my store and reduced all the prices and done a manual price override. And the reason for this is this website is a Shopify account. Now, Shopify automatically sets the prices unless you manually override things. And the reason I did this is because behind the scenes, there are many moving parts to working a full-time job, running a web store, running a YouTube channel, and having a DJ business, and working those 40 hours while trying to be a father and do many other things. So I went through, I manually price wrote everything, because if I were the buyer, that was the mindset that I had when I went in and done these corrections. So I do hope you check my store out, and I do hope you find something you like, and I do hope that you support hypnowaves.com, because it is helping drive forward the signal, the message that I am trying to get out to all of you, cutting through all of the noise and the chatter of the naysayers, of the people who say that the future is pessimistic. There is nothing to look forward to. I am making those waves. And speaking of waves, I want to really drill down into this for all of you, because this is all about the why. When we understand waves, right, there is a peak and a low, and this is very symbolic. So when you see the advertising and you see ride those waves, it is all about riding the wave of life. There are going to be days that are good. There are going to be days that are not so good. And allowing yourself to ride that wave means that you are not getting hit by the wave, and you are not getting stuck in that bottom point. Because anything truly is possible and the future is bright. That means that we understand that not every day is going to be perfect, and we don't get hung up in regrets and repeat that same day over and over and over. I used to say years ago that I felt like I was living in Groundhog Day. I was doing the same thing over and over. Think about it like this. If you work the same job all of your life, you never change positions, you never move up, you just let's just say you're a floor sweeper, and so all of your life you've swept the floor. You have repeated the same pattern over and over and over. So to evolve is to change or transcend or even transform into something else, to elevate, to uplift, to accelerate and transform. There is a saying that energy cannot be destroyed, it only transforms. And if you think about it like this, what is hot and what is cold? If we look at water, for example, when water is cold, it becomes water. When it is heated up, it transforms into steam. Is it not still the same chemicals, the same material, the same combination of things, right? Same thing for electricity, same thing for matter, same thing. It applies to everything. You can only transform something, you cannot destroy it. So when we have this very simple understanding of life, then we understand that we can transform our life from the inside out at any time, and we can evolve into a different version of ourselves. And I want to share with you a website. It's called eocinstitute.org, and I will do a screen recording as we go through this. But this website at the beginning of my channel when I first started was really beneficial to me. And once you go to this website, you will start to see how these different themes have played out in my own channel. And for those of you that have been following my channel, I think this will be like a light bulb moment going off. In fact, in the very beginning, I shared a few things from this site with some people I know. I printed out some documents and shared it with them. And unfortunately, for some of those people, those documents just got shoved to the side and forgotten about. But for me, It was very real. For me, it was about the why factor. And once I learned how meditation was really changing my life and allowing me to go beyond what I thought I could do and what I thought was possible, it was game over. It was no going back. So facing fear, for example, is like shining a light into the darkness. You don't know what's in there until you actually illuminate it and see for yourself. So meditation, this website actually shows us 141 benefits of meditation. Everything from health to body, brain power, mind power, happiness, and mental health. There is a slew of beneficial things that are all in a holistic type way. Sound healing, for example, and cymatics was very beneficial to me because it allowed me to actually visually see what sound looks like. So when we have harmonious sounds that are resonating together, there is visually a very pleasing design that is created from that. When we take something that has a very destructive or out of balance sound, then the images created is shown as such. It's very disorganized. And I also want to point out something else that's very interesting as we look through some of these screenshots on the screen. When we look into the animal kingdom, right, we look at ants. They're not talking to each other. They are sending biochemistry or biosignals to each other. Ants will do what they do by design, by nature's design. Same thing with birds. They migrate during the seasonal changes. There's no communication in the verbal sense like humans communicate, but they have this sense of the magnetic field of the earth, and that is how they are able to migrate. And it's not just birds, it's not just ants or bees. Magnetism within nature plays a huge role. That is the way that Mother Nature orchestrates everything. And for humans, the spoken word has been one of these things that has been watered down and watered down and watered down for so long, for so many generations. And eventually we have lost the true understandings of the vibrational tones. When we look at the ancient cathedrals and when we look at the ancient civilizations, there are some people that even say that humans didn't need to use words in the ancient times because there was I can never say this word to save my life. Telepathy. Lord help me, please. You know what I'm trying to say. Your thoughts to my thoughts to your thoughts. This is kind of like the Vulcan mind melt where we are able to read each other's minds. So the electromagnetic fields and electromagnetism. What the fuck is gravity? Pardon my French, guys, but think about this for just a minute. If we take the very simple understanding, now this doesn't have to be over explained. If you go out into the sunlight, the light is hitting your eyeballs and being sucked into those black holes and into the body. There is a form of transformation that is happening. Those protons, electrons, are being transformed into electrical impulses that the brain then has to descramble and then recreate an image from that. So if we understand that, the light is entering into the body and it cannot escape. That sounds just like what we come to know as black holes in space. Now, when I first learned about black holes many, many years ago, just watching the History Channel, for example, I'm like, my God, that's kind of frightening. If a black hole was near Earth and we got sucked into it, then there's no escape. But what is on the other side of a black hole? As we understand it, mass just keeps collecting. Now, they say gravity is the bending of space and time. Is that not what the human experience is? We are bending space and time. Think about what autotelic flow is, for example. Autotelic flow, as I've used this example many times, is the dancer becoming one with the music. or any other type activity that you could do where time just simply melts away, where it seems like an all immersive experience where everything just flows so nicely together. If you are working with a teammate or a friend, a coworker, or even your children or your parents, for example, and you are doing something that has a bit of a synchronization to it, you kind of know what the other person is going to need at the exact moment they need it without the communication skills. I personally was reflecting on this last night in preparation for this video, and I was thinking back when I was a Boy Scout and I joined the Order of the Arrow. Now, technically, if my memory serves me correctly, we were not supposed to talk about this, but I do remember one exercise that I can share with you. And that was for 3 days, we were paired up with different people and we had to complete certain tasks. But the kicker was we could not talk to each other. We had to figure out ways to communicate without verbal speech. And so that was a team building exercise. And I've also shared a reel a few months ago where I was showing the Blue Angels. If you don't know who they are, there's plenty of videos here on YouTube. But the Blue Angels are an exhibition flying amazement. There's really no way to put it. It's precision flying. But these guys sit around pre-flight and they meditate, and they are so synchronized with each other that every move has been practiced so many times that the thought process goes away and they feel. You can see this in Top Gun 2 where he is told to feel more and think less. So feelings in some of the teachings around the world are considered as magnetic, while thoughts are considered as electric. That kind of makes sense if we think about thoughts as electrical impulses. So the electricity or the energy of the mind, right? If our mind is consumed with everything of the outside world, with what this person thinks that we should do, with what that person thinks is how we should act, if we are constantly trying to appease all of these things out here, who are we living for? Who are we performing for? Who are we becoming if we are trying to be what everyone out there wants us to be? Are we really free in our mind, or are we living someone else's dreams, someone else's opinions, or even someone else's story? So if you understand that as a concept and we use it as a template, and then we think about the terminology free energy or 0 point energy, right? Light enters into our eyes and can never escape. If feelings are magnetic, thoughts are electric, then we understand what free energy means. To free your mind from the outside world, the prison, right? If we go back and we look at the Matrix and we understand how Neo and Morpheus, the concept of the mental prison, or we could say prism, where we are able to take that one light source and split it into the range of color and live in color. Free minds live in color while other minds live in black and white. Now think about this for just a minute. If black and white thinking was a real thing, then I would probably say that most of the public education is black and white thinking. You're giving a manual script, you're given a book, you're given a set of rules or a code of conduct. Anything outside of this black and white thinking becomes either right or wrong, yes or no, up or down. So that starts to box in behavior patterns, behavior traits, the way that we imagine and the way that we perceive the outside world. However, if you unlearn everything you learned growing up and allow yourself to hit that reset button and allow yourself to live in color and enter into the right hemisphere of the mind, you will start to understand what live in color means. That black and white thinking is not always the end all be all. Sometimes following that magnetic field, the feelings. Animals do this, right? Ants, they don't talk to each other, but they are carrying out a mission. Birds migrate during the seasonal changes. They don't have a compass. They have a built-in GPS. They can sense the magnetic fields. And when the changing of the season is happening, they are relying on this magnetic field to guide them. This is GPS guidance built right into every living thing on this planet. However, humans have, through many generations of evolution, have really detached themselves from that said magnetic field. Now, I personally think, I am not a professor, I am not a PhD in gravity, but I personally think that gravity was given to us to turn our heads away from magnetism. We can experience magnetism on a small scale playing with magnets. We know that electromagnetic fields exist through wireless communication or TV, for that example. But the electromagnetic field of the heart and the mind and magnetism itself is something that is lost on us on a mass scale. Now, yes, there are those who know about it, understand it, and knows how it works, but there are a lot of people that simply are unplugged from it. So magnetism itself is explained in many different ways. We can witness it in the outside world. Again, that analogy of sunlight coming into the eyeballs as a black hole and entering into the body as electrical impulses and then converted into signals. This, if we go all the way back to how I opened this video, why I created Hypnovision Studios, I looked around and saw so many people that were lost. I saw so many people full of fear, so many people who did not know what to look for in the future. When we get caught up into the outside world in that way, it is certainly easy to start to take on those impressions, right? When we get close to someone, sometimes if we are paying attention, we can sense someone before they walk into a room. There's a saying that your energy introduces you before you walk into a room. And that is no lie, guys. There is a lot of truth to this. There are some people who have a very strong energetic field around them. Some people are very weak, and the weaker becomes polarized to what is stronger. You can absolutely change the magnetic field or the polarity of another person simply by how you are charged, or if someone else around you has a stronger charge than you do, it will influence your magnetic field. Think about this. During COVID, they told us to stay 6 feet apart from each other. When you really stop and ask yourself why, think about it. Why 6 foot apart? So many of the taglines in that narrative did not make sense to the average person who was able to critically think. But for everyone else who had got to the point where they believed the news as a source of truth, those people fell for it hook, line, and sinker, and then the news ran it for 24 hours a day nonstop. And this created a mass meditation or mass meditative state where the narrative, the attention, and the focal point was put onto a specific narrative, and then it was drove home. This created a mass vision, right? When we understand that when a vision is greater than two people, or two people can see a vision that is greater than both of them, that is an alignment where both people can get some mutual benefit from it, then it becomes valuable. Likewise, if it is used for the wrong intentions, it doesn't really matter if it's valuable or not at that point. If you can convince a person that something is real, they will accept it as reality. That is why we call things reality TV. It's not always real, right? Think about the generation that grew up with MTV, specifically in the 2000s, where we had what you see on TV. Sometimes we start to accept as true or as reality, and then we start to behave accordingly. We start to mimic what we see, because there is more than just the words. There is the behavior, there is the magnetism of it all, and that is a lot of the unseen forces that are at play that are always trying to influence us. Now, when I came up with the name and the understanding for Hypnovision Studios and how I was going to attempt to start to deliver my messages, it was very simple. Identify what it is that I'm trying to do. Take action. Don't think about it too much. So that's what happened. And I started to speak from a place that was very different than I had ever spoke from before. And when I started to do that, I started to realize that I was going to have to stand alone for a certain amount of time. There's a saying that you have to show people in order for them to see that something is real. Some people have that mindset of seeing is believing. So when it comes to free energy, when it comes to free will, and when it comes to conscious choices, showing them that anything is possible became a mantra for myself. You will often hear me say the future is bright, and I truly believe that. I take that back to understanding riding the waves. We accept that not every day is going to be a good day. Look at it like this. If you had your whole existence of life as nothing but a non-ending great day, would you have any contrast to compare to what a bad day would look like, or a day that's just simply a little bit off? If you lived life in the light, how would you know what darkness is? If you were in darkness and never seen light, you would not have the contrast of what light is. So there is that duality aspect of life, and that is when we look at waves, we have the high and the low point in waves. So ride the wave is being in the flow. It is not putting an anchor down in a point where we are at the low point of the wave. If we must come to a rest, think about this, guys. Think about the air around you. Electromagnetism is literally pulling energy out of the air. Why do we call something static electricity? What does the word static mean? Not moving, at rest. Energy never really truly rests. It is always moving. It is always vibrating. However, some energy that is moving slower is more static because it is very slow moving energy. Now, we can pull energy out of the thin air because it is called static electricity, meaning it has not been transformed into a different vibrational state yet. So when we understand that very concept, we understand what Nikola Tesla was talking about. Free energy, because it is abundant in our atmosphere. It is all around us, and it is inside of us as electrical impulses. And we unknowingly, throughout our lives, have been polarized to think certain ways, to act certain ways, to become certain ways. And that is how we become polarized into these lines of thinking. So that is very insightful for anyone out there who is looking for clues or answers or trying to connect dots in their own lives. I will tell you that anything is possible because I believe it and I am living it. I was sick and tired of everyone's opinions about my life. And I will tell you very honestly and openly, I wanted to give up. I had already gone through overcoming a pill addiction back in 2016. What started off as simple pain in my temple with a prescription, it eventually led to it becoming I could not live without the medication because of the tolerance. If you understand opiates, for example, it takes less than 7 days for it to completely change the chemical makeup in the body and the body starts to become dependent on it. And then you have to have more and more and more. Unfortunately, most of the times the side effects of this are far worse than the benefits, which is why those type medicines are only best used in short-term cases. So for me, learning from firsthand experience that I had to quit cold turkey and allow myself to find another holistic way of healing myself. Now, that temple pain was caused by a lot of stress, internal stress, things that were hard for me to discuss openly to anyone on the outside. However, meditation helped me to really understand years later what was going on. Certain things, when those memories would come up in meditation, I could feel different parts of my body start to tense up. What causes a muscle to tense up? It is the electrical impulses sent to those muscles that tells that muscle to contract or to release, contract or release. Now, you think about all the processes that happens in the body in order for you to function that you never think about. When you walk across a room, when you get in your car to drive, when you go anywhere in life, there are millions of calculated processes that the brain is doing on your behalf that you do not have to think about. Sure, initially you had to learn, and initially, for example, walking, you had to learn to balance yourself. And that over time becomes something that is automatic. You don't have to think about balancing yourself. Your body has already learned that lesson, and it has made it a part of you. It has been integrated into who you are. So you don't think about how many steps, you don't think about balance, and therefore it's automatic. Same thing happens because those are patterns. Same things happen when we go through experiences that are negative, traumatic, or either very emotionally, and we become attached to that. And the attachment is like an impression. And when we recall that memory, we also recall the impression. And then we can experience that same event 15 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road. When that memory is recalled, we experience it again. Now, it may not be to the same level or the same degree of emotional experience. I think about the movie Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't even want to say his last name, but you know what I'm talking about. He goes to Mars and his brain is white. And so the memory of the human condition is also attached to emotion. And if you've been watching my channel, guys, I always say this: emotion and energy are one and the same. So when we think about this, the electrical impulses, the magnetic feelings, and the emotion of the body, E equals MC square, energy in motion. When we free our mind from those limited patterns and we start to live in color instead of black and white, then we can start to create a very different image, a very different story, a very different outcome. And when we start to do this and we start to think in terms of the future is bright, even if I'm having a bad day, I know long term that the future is bright. This is not going to hold me down. This is not going to weigh me down. This is not going to stop me from reaching my end goal, because this is only temporary. I am riding that wave to the future. Very interesting stuff to really think about. So when I started Hypnovision Studios, I was going through a shift in my own life behind the scenes. Nobody could see it at the time, but I experienced a lot of dreams, and I experienced what some people would refer to as getting a download. What does that mean, to be exact? Well, if we think about a download, right, in computer technology or terminology, we are downloading something from another website. So for example, I'm going to download the software, and the software is hosted on Windows, right, or Windows Home Server. My computer is going to connect to Windows and is going to request the information. The information is then going to be sent to me and is going to be downloaded onto my local hard drive or local disk, whatever you want to call it. We can think about this in terms of downloading, right, from the conscious brain down into the magnetic fillings. So once we understand this, we can start to choose things that we allow to go into our soul. This is where we start to understand what an NPC means. I'm sure that many of you have seen the memes and the images online. The gray person that is an NPC who does not think for themselves. They just repeat everything that they see and hear and do. And whatever the current trend is, they are all about that current trend. That is essentially what an NPC is. They are supposedly people without souls. They have no sense of who they are. And in that type essence, they are like a chameleon. They have no self-identity. They have no critical thinking, if you want to call it that. So a download in that sense can be so massive to someone who is pulling down magnetically different electrical impulses, and you can see the vision. And the vision can be so great that it takes a long time to put into words. I look at it like this. If you have a blueprint to a house, you can see the entire house. You can see the different levels. You can see the foundation. You can see the finished product. However, that's a lot of work to put that into a blueprint. If you see it with your eyes, you know what it is. The minute you see it, you don't have to write a long book or many pages of blueprints and then the expandables, right? On a blueprint, you have to go into expansion to see some of the finer details, or you zoom back out. So vision, sometimes we can see something on a grand scale that is hard to put into words. So if you're only having a 5-minute intervals with people where you're discussing things, your plans, your goals, your dreams, it is hard to equate such a large vision to someone in such a small time frame. However, if you're magnetically charged and magnetically aligned with someone, then through the communication of magnetism, that person can understand your vision a lot quicker. This is what the ancient people knew. And going back to how the old cathedrals used sound resonance, and they did not have a lot of words in their music. It was all frequency. It was all vibration and magnetism. So again, we look at the animal kingdom. There are signals that animals use, and there is the magnetic fields of the body, which is natural GPS. Very interesting stuff. And I hope that you guys, like, I really do want you to be like really thinking to yourself, like, wow, that's I never thought about that. Makes a lot of sense when you do start to think about it. So so don't think about how something can happen. Don't worry about if it can happen. If you understand why it can happen, then you are already light years beyond other people around you. And with that, guys, I'll see you on the next video.